So 5 years from now, what are we going to look back on and say, man, we underestimated the crap out of that?
I am very optimistic and I always have been. I'm not a fan of doom and gloom when it comes to security because if I was, I think I would have quit already and bought a dairy farm up here in Wisconsin. We are well on our way to AI security, using security in AI. The wonderful thing right now with where we are at more than ever before is we understand it. I know there's a lot of people out there that are like, we don't know what we're getting into, but
Hello,
we do.
everyone. This is Rick with the CyberPro podcast. Industry leaders share their insights because hackers never sleep. Crystal, we're starting with you. This is amazing. I'm excited. You live near my hometown in Wisconsin, so this should be a lot of fun. We will try not to talk too much about cheese, but tell us who you are and why you're awesome.
So, my name is Crystal Morin. I am a senior cybersecurity strategist at Sysdig. It's an AI powered cloud security provider. I started my career in 2011 in the US Air Force. I was a Levantine Arabic linguist, had no idea what that meant at the time, but I was a translator and I worked in national security, counter threat finance, terrorist threats, moved into cyber terrorism. And then I got out of the military, worked for a defense contractor, which is what a lot of people do when they get out. Did the same thing, countering threats, moved further into cyber threats. When I was at Booz, I had the opportunity to start writing detection analytics. I worked on a purple teaming platform. I grew a community of cyber threat intelligence analysts. And that's where I started picking up on cloud detections and cloud environments. And I found Sysdig. Joined the Sysdig threat research team, and they said I was good at talking to people and translating. Who would have thought? So I started translating cyber threats and technical things into business acumen and things that journalists and media and anybody else could understand, these confusing technical threats into broader things so people could understand how to defend against them. And that's still what I do today. I write reports and I talk to people and try to help organizations better defend themselves against today's threat.
Love it. Crystal, I'm super curious, and then I'm gonna let you dig in a little bit about what Sysdig does. But I'm super curious when you started in threat research, in threat intelligence, and you started doing kind of red team, blue team. Were you kind of first to the front lines with the purple team moniker?
So I don't think so. No, when I got into that field, I didn't know what it was either when I was first thrown into it. Coming from that national security background and just finding bad guys and trying to figure out what they were doing.
Yep.
And that's where I got thrown into it. So I was looking for intelligence and reading threat reports that all kinds of vendors were putting out. And that's where I started in purple teaming, was distilling these reports into just raw intelligence, taking out all of the IOCs. And I started with static detections, right? Based off of hashes. And now, obviously, we've all matured into behavioral detections. And I even kind of started doing it back then, too. Like, we need to know more of what they're doing, not just what this looks like. So, yeah, understanding behaviors, that's something that I've done for a very long time and something that we learned in the intelligence community. And that just kind of carried through. But from doing that, I worked really closely with red teamers and tried to teach them what they should be doing on their end and teaching them threat intelligence so that they could better their craft too.
Let's dig into a little bit about what Sysdig does. It sounds like an iRobot command prompt, but what do you guys do? What does Sysdig as a company offer to their customers?
So, Sysdig, like I said, is an AI driven security platform for cloud native organizations. But it's not just cloud. We provide for on premise hybrid environments too, data sovereign in the EU as well. So, private clouds, everyone, is a security dashboard for industries to use, finance, healthcare, etc. to help them prioritize their security threats. It's great for developers, security practitioners. They get a lot of alerts and stress thrown at them. So Sysdig's dashboard helps them distill that down. We have an AI tool called Sysdig Sage that's helped our customers prioritize security threats, really reduce vulnerabilities. We've seen vulnerability reduction come down by like 95% just based off of runtime insights, prioritizing, you know, production environments over test environments, vulnerabilities actually running versus not running, or something that's actually being exploited is a much higher priority versus not. So, yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about artificial intelligence, right? We're in this world where attackers are using AI. They exploit vulnerabilities in hours instead of days, weeks, months. We know that's happening. Do you think as humans we're losing the battle?
I don't think we are. The Sysdig threat research team actually has a lot of current research just from the last couple months on this that we can dig into right now. I wrote a report just a couple months ago. It's the Cloud Native Security and Usage Report. And the top line from that report is that we've hit the human limits of security. And that might sound like doom and gloom, right? Like, well, we can't do it anymore. AI is here and we're done. We've given up. But that's not what I'm trying to say. Yes, AI is making it easier for attackers and faster. Some of the recent research that we've seen, there was a CVE couple months ago against Langflow, and the attacker was able to take the CVE announcement. It used to be, right, that the CVE would come out and then someone would post the POC on GitHub, right? And then you would see the flood of attacks come out of the gates. Now we are seeing it go from disclosure to attack with no POC. And for that one, it was 20 hours. So from disclosure to active attack in less than 24 hours in that case for an open source project that's fairly popular. There's, I think it's like 20,000 stars on GitHub for Langflow. So that's pretty disheartening, right? Called Marimo. That one was under 10 hours to exploit, again, with no public POC. So that's the kind of timescale that we're talking about with how these vulnerabilities are being exploited. So what can we do? Obviously, patching fast. Yes, we can say, patch your stuff. When CVEs come out, make sure you patch it. Usually patches are available fairly quickly, but sometimes they're not. And that's just not always feasible. Patch Tuesday is once a month. Um,
Or once a year in some cases.
that doesn't work for everyone. And then on the other hand, you have sometimes these open source tools where a patch is released, but you have a threat actor that has manipulated that source code, and that new patch actually has malicious code injected into it. We saw that with, SolarWinds or XeUtils a couple of years ago, and that was malicious code that was injected into the open source tool. So you can't always trust those either. You have to actually run the patch and make sure that it's secure before you actually go and apply it. So we're struggling. The thing that we need to do, like I said, is use runtime. Working through runtime CI/CD pipeline is the best thing that we can do continuously monitoring our security processes in production in real time. Those are the keywords. And detection analytics. Coming from a threat intelligence background, there's so many vendors and security researchers that are putting out information and detection analytics that we can use to find these things. Like I said, patches don't happen quickly. So if you at least have a detection analytic that you can use to find these things, then you can at least defend against it, quarantine a container, and then you can move forward with an investigation without having to have had a breach happen. And then you can patch, at some point.
Crystal, let's dig into your report. I have two questions, one on the dystopian side and one that's more of a positive feature. The first one is around the discussion of non-human identities, especially in the cloud. I get asked a lot about non-human identities, like what the value is of having them in your environment, what they're doing, how to support a defense against them. What was the percentage that you found in the cloud are human identities now, and why is this so important?
So it was just under 3% are human, is 2.8% are human. So about 97% of identities in a cloud environment on average belong to machines.
So we started Skynet. Is that what we're doing here?
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. This is all of the movies that we grew up with as kids. That's what we're looking at now. Yes.
Why do you think that's happened? I mean, obviously we're seeing a lot more agentic, but it can't just be agentic, right? What's going on?
No, no, not at all. It's not just agentic AI. When we say machine identities, these aren't robots running our clouds. It's just machine learning processes. I mean, these are things that we've done for decades, even just API calls. These things also have their own machine identities. An IAM policy in AWS is considered a machine identity. When you are onboarding a new service for literally anything, any of your vendors that you may be using for your environment, they will add machine identities to onboard their services for all those API calls because they need to connect to, if you're onboarding a new security vendor, they need to connect to all of these data services, all of these API calls to all of your other vendors that you have. So even just a single vendor onboarding is going to add all kinds of machine identities that should be taken down when it's done. That would lead us to how can you clean up machine identities? Running audits regularly will definitely help because there's plenty of machine identities that are not in use that you can shut down. That's, I would say, just step one of basic identity hygiene that you could take to help.
The interesting part is I have a friend who runs a DevOps house, and his mandate to all of his employees is that if he goes and audits the developers, because they're the most notorious about not bringing stuff back down, if he audits and they haven't turned something off, they actually lose a percentage point of their bonus every year, every time he catches them. So he accountabilities his developers,
Yeah, I mean, bring money into it. That's not a bad idea. Yes,
right? So
exactly.
the positive part of your report, I was very intrigued by this, having worked, as an investigator in the past and seeing the SOCs kind of, being fatigued. Artificial intelligence has helped increase instantly terminated threats through various automations. 140%, I think, is what your report said. Why is this important? And we're never going to see an autonomous system take over completely, but why is it important that we're seeing AI being used for the good things?
So that's speaking to automated response actions. And that's not just artificial intelligence. We're even talking machine learnings, writing a script to say, if X, then Y, right? Like I said, decades and decades of doing this in computer systems, not even cloud, on premise environments. Back when you had a giant stack, right, of servers in a back room, you have a detection that triggers. And if that detection triggers because you think someone bad is doing something bad, if this fires, then I want this container to be isolated. That doesn't even have to be an AI agent doing anything. That's just a machine learning script that says, I want this to be isolated if it happens. Now, you can also, that's maturity level one. Maturity level two, using an AI agent that says, if this happens, do this. And as that continues through your environment, it will learn, it will get smarter as other things happen. It will take these steps. It'll start doing your investigation for you after it contains the container, or isolates the container. So there's different maturity levels. And that's kind of what we're seeing. So there's been over the last 2 or 3 years a slow increase in the number of organizations who are using automated response for detection analytics. Over the last year, we've seen an increase in number of organizations using behavioral analytics. Like I said, years ago, it was only static IOC detections, but we know that a majority of threats are detected using behavioral analytics, especially now too with agentic threats that attackers are using. Evil AI knows how to circumvent your detections, right? It can figure out how to go around it. Every time an AI agent goes to a new environment, it's going to use new techniques to get around those detections in a new environment. And that's going to be a struggle for defenders. So, being able to figure out behavioral detections is going to try to help us fight against that game. And we've seen more and more organizations using behavioral detections to year over year, which are higher fidelity. And then they're confidently growing more towards autonomous response as well.
Let's pivot a little bit into something that I'm excited to hear your answer on. So on LinkedIn, you said, quote, some people call me a crystal ball. Some say I was a super spy. So what's the most super spy moment of your career that you can actually talk about?
I was going to say, I can't tell you. Well, like I said, I worked in national security against and counterterrorism. Being able to take money from terrorists and put bad guys away, like that's just what I am most proud of. I never deployed, unfortunately. When I first joined the military, I was like, let's go, send me down range. I am ready. And that didn't happen, but I was still able to support national security from a desk. And I'm very, very proud of that. Still being able to save lives, support US military projects from home. And that's what I'm most proud of for sure. And then I can still continue kind of doing something similar now. Obviously, it's not military based, but still helping organizations defend themselves.
Love it. I probably deployed enough for both of us, so we're good there. But I had a lot of respect for my intel folks, anybody who was out there helping us while we were in the field, and while we didn't always work with the Air Force folks, we did work with all of the different branches. But you didn't miss a lot. You got to shower every day, and I didn't. So it was an interesting take. So think about this. You've spent your career studying threats, attacks, bad actors. Does it change how you see other humans?
It does to a point. So, my husband and I are both former military. We both work in cybersecurity now. There's definitely a sense of paranoia in our household. Our kids know to an extent what we did and what we do. So, yes, it does. We have a hard time trusting people. We're very hesitant to use technology. Don't really have any smart home stuff here. Unfortunately, we do have smartphones, which we don't love all the time. But yeah, and then I do talk to my kids' school about cyber threats and things like that too. And we share information with friends, family, I mean, anyone we can and anyone that we can talk to. So, I mean, I don't necessarily distrust anyone anymore, but I do try to talk to people as much as I can about what they can do to protect themselves in just their day to day lives.
And I tell people I'm optimistically realistic with a hint of sarcasm. So,
Yeah.
so, so I'm right there with you. My wife always laughs. The other thing that I have to tell everybody that knows me is I'm not an IT help desk person. So I'm sure you have that as well.
Yeah. Yeah. My husband can help a little bit more than I can, but yeah, for sure. I can't
It's
help you
it's
with your
brutal.
laptop. No.
So be honest, Crystal. How much of modern cyber today is actually protection versus organizations trying to look secure?
Right now I am currently in school. I'm taking a couple classes for a master's cert, and I'm in a class about governance and a class about cyber law. And the governance class is very interesting. So, in my position at Sysdig, I talk about governance a lot. And it's a word that is, I guess, overhyped in the security industry, right? I work for a vendor. We talk about it a lot, but it's also very important. There very strictly governed industries like finance and healthcare. And if they don't abide by regulations, they get in trouble. And talking to some of these other students in this class, they have said exactly what I expect them to, that regulations get in the way. It's just a checkbox. And that was very, very disheartening. And I'm hoping that the class opens their eyes and that they see that governance is very important and that they need it to protect organizations and that it's not just a buzzword. So we'll see where we're at the end of the class. I don't think that
That
answers your question, but it,
it, it did, and it poses a secondary question and an idea to something that you can take back to the class, because I do this quite a bit in tabletop exercises with boards. One of the things that I talk about is they sit down and they say, well, we have all these regulations. Most recently, I was with an auto dealership because they're now part of the SEC rule that has to report in 72 hours because they have financial information. And they were like, why is this regulation here? And I said, okay, let's sit down and pause for a second. Back up, think about if the regulation wasn't there, what could happen? And I make them just like we whiteboard, like I throw it up on a piece of paper, on a whiteboard or a chalkboard, and all the things that could happen if the regulation wasn't there. And then I ask them, and I've done the research on this, what do you think is the actual reason this regulation was put in? Do you think it's because the government wanted overreach? Do you think it's because of whatever? And in the case of that SEC rule, it wasn't overreach at all. It was actually protecting the businesses from cyber insurance providers. That's the ruling was there so that way insurance providers would actually pay the claim. And so that was eye opening for that board. And I think your class would be super interested in like doing that.
yeah.
I do think there are some regulations that could be considered overreach, but then I also sit down and say there's a difference between regulations and governance.
Hmm.
And I think that's the term you and I use is governance more than regulation.
Hmm. It does help them move a little bit faster, right? That SEC rule does help them move a little bit faster for their incident response, right? So,
Hopefully.
yeah.
So 5 years from now, what are we going to look back on and say, man, we underestimated the crap out of that?
I am very optimistic and I always have been. I'm not a fan of doom and gloom when it comes to security because if I was, I think I would have quit already and bought a dairy farm up here in Wisconsin, probably. I still think we are well on our way to AI security, using security in AI. The wonderful thing right now with where we are at more than ever before is we understand it. I know there's a lot of people out there that are like, we don't know what we're getting into, but we do. Unlike when we first broke into the cloud and we had no idea what it was coming from on prem because it was a completely different monster as far as security went, we already have AI bombs. Like we have broken it down. I wrote a paper about it last year. We understand the levels. We see where the trust is, where it's broken down, what the security of it looks like. So we get it. Are we good at securing it? Not necessarily. Sometimes yes, sometimes no, but we know what it takes. And that's what I'm hopeful for because we know what we need to do. We're not necessarily good at it, like identity security. There is a lot of information in that usage report that I wrote. We've been doing identity security for a long time. We're still not very good at it. Actually, we have better statistics on machine identity security than we do on human identity security. We have higher risk with identity management for human users than we do for machines. So just let that sink in for a
Let that sink. Yeah, that's
And
crazy.
humans are the biggest cause of breaches still, right? So
Yep, we are. We are. So if you choose to go the farm path, the dairy farm path, we actually milked goats because they're smaller and they only eat your pants. They don't like have a whole lot of other stuff. So feel free to put that in your back
I
pocket.
do have chickens. I have
There
lots
you
of
go.
chickens.
All right. The next questions, Crystal, are all about the shorts. 30 seconds or less. Give us a fun, super succinct answer. First one, what's the scariest thing happening in AI security right now?
One that we just reported, I think the beginning of this week, it was a fully LLM driven attack. It went from using a vulnerability for initial access to completing a breach in less than an hour in 4 pivots, 4 moves.
Saying I don't even think I can do that. That's a master chess player right there. So let's take that one step further for the next short question. It's, are humans obsolete in cybersecurity?
No, absolutely not. Humans can still use LLMs. A couple months ago, we saw a human manipulating an AI script. It was an AI scripted attack, but we still saw the human comments. It was 95% AI, but you could still see clearly that it was, hey, a human that edited the script. So,
Love it. So what's one security myth that just needs to die immediately?
man, AI isn't going to die. AI is not dead. It's here to stay. I'm sorry.
No matter what the Pope says, right? So,
Right.
I love it. So what's more dangerous right now? An AI powered attack or companies rushing to adopt AI?
I would say companies rushing to adopt AI because attackers are going to be all over your mistakes. And so are attackers. Doesn't matter if it's a person or an AI attack. They're going to find your gaps and they're going to exploit them.
All right, last quick question for you. This is the controversial one. If you could ban one cyber practice tomorrow, what would it be?
It's gatekeeping. I am a big fan of community. So I say the more we can share with each other, the better.
I love that answer. So, final question, why do you love being a cyber pro and why should other people want to be one?
I think I've said it a million times already in this conversation. I am incredibly passionate about helping. It's why I joined the military and it's why I'm still here. I am here to help people and help organizations defend against evil. I want to better detections and help organizations stay safe. That's why I'm here and I'm never going to stop. And that's why I think people should continue to join. It's not going away. AI is not going to take over your jobs. There's still always going to be a human element. So feel free to join me.
I love it. Crystal, thank you so much for being on the Cyber Pro podcast.
Thanks for having me. This was fun.